This week at Barrett-Jackson is more colorful than ever with a wild collection from Dr. Stuart A. Berkowitz, who's acquired TV cars and movie cars throughout his life. Now, I haven't seen all the shows and movies that these cars are from, but I know there are people here who have. You watched Speed Racer growing up. We've got the car.
Speed Racer, Racer X, just incredible. They'd be in the race and these blades would come out of the wheels and out of the front end, cutting the tires. Great childhood memory.
Green Hornet, I'm looking at some of the equipment.
The bullets coming out of there, yes.
So those were bullets. I'm in so much trouble because I didn't even know that.
I remember in the movie when he was shifting gears as a little kid, and I was just fascinated by it. I absolutely loved it.
1.21 gigawatts.
Monkeys were like late 60s. Mickey Dolenz, Peter Tork, Mike Nesmith, Davy Jones.
Bob Hope's custom golf cart.
He did not like the crowds watching him play because he was not a very good golfer.
You just watched Herbie the movie. What made you put that on?
We find that it's less stimulating for the kids and trying to introduce them to the stuff that like we grew up on.
You gonna race one day?
No.
The Deathmobile, the Animal House was amazing.
We got the Shaggin' Wagon back here. You don't want to get caught in the rain, right? But what do you remember from this movie?
Foot long. Who's got the foot long? We got to lift the leg.
Right? Let's go lift
Let's
the
go.
leg. Everyone remembers Gilligan's Island. What do you think about this golf cart? Because it kind of has that Rolls-Royce treatment, but it doesn't quite look like a Rolls-Royce.
It's like something Mr. and Mrs. Howell would use.
Who's that? You remember Speed Racer?
Go Speed Racer, go Speed Racer, go Speed Racer, go!
When there's something strange in your neighborhood, who are you going to call?
Ghostbusters, of course.
911.
And there have been big crowds around those cars all weekend. Check that out, the Flintstone car right there. We got the Fantasy Island car behind it, a Herbie the Love Bug, Gilligan's Island. This is all getting ready to cross the block, so stay with us. You will see all these cross the block. And I can tell you, everybody's been enthralled by these. I'm really curious to see what kind of money they bring when they're up on the block.
I've got something you've been missing all of your life. It is a recreation of the Gilligan's Island golf cart. It is so cool. It's got this massive front grille that resembles that Rolls-Royce feel, very statuesque. Of course, a Spirit of Ecstasy. Wait, no, that is a starfish hood ornament up there. And also, very important, you have a period correct, fully functioning puffer fish antenna, grass roof, grass floor. I mean, it goes on. The details are fantastic. I love how the seat reclines, so if you know you have a long day at the beach, you can kind of relax as you're driving home. Back here, the tail lights wrapped in twine, very important. If you're ever marooned on an island, follow the specs of this. Very important. Rick, what do you think? This is perfect.
You know, you can't get much more fun than a Gilligan's Island golf cart. Meanwhile, check this out. The first that we're going to see cross the block of that collection, a custom-built golf cart that was formerly used by Bing Crosby. He's got his signature hat up on top.
So this one is also, it's an electric cart. This is a Cushman. They just sold Lucille Ball's Westinghouse golf cart. Here is the telephone. It's a dial phone. It works. 8-track player with dual speakers. All of the conveniences. The big hat and the pipe, so everybody knew that Bing was coming. This was his. And Dr. Stuart Berkowitz acquired this George Barris built creation in September of 2020.
I'm just blown away by the TV in there. You see the 8-track player, but then there's the TV set. So he didn't miss a thing when he was out on the golf course. Just amazing. Bing passed away in the 1970s, but yeah, obviously an icon during the Christmas time. Of course, White Christmas is something you hear every single year. Yeah, he's just a major figure in pop culture.
Most of the clubs in these bags are period. Wow.
Back when woods were woods. Whoa.
Well, $25,000, the price for a Bing Crosby used custom-built golf cart with those George Barris touches on it. And once again, that's just the first of the Stuart Berkowitz collection, and right behind it is something really interesting. This is a Triumph motorcycle, TR5, but this is a recreation of the motorcycle that Fonzie used in the TV show Happy Days for that iconic moment when he jumped the shark.
So I've seen Happy Days. I believe it on in reruns. Wasn't he on water skis when he jumped the shark? I think the description is off on this one, because I remember him being on water skis, but of course there was that iconic motorcycle jump scene in earlier seasons where he slid off on the end and they thought that he hurt himself. I don't know. I mean, I'm just remembering it personally.
The Jump the Shark episode became famous, and it is known in TV lore. The phrase jumping the shark means your show has run its course and you pulled out all the stops to do something wild and exotic to try to save it without success. That's jumping the shark.
You're right. I'm actually watching it right now. He's being booked. But that was what he drove on the episode for that particular day.
He did do a big motorcycle jump. I remember that in the period it being a big deal. Yeah, that's actually in Al's Diner. Absolutely right. I'm remembering all of this from reruns.
So in trying to build his museum, Dr. Berkowitz tried to acquire the actual car, truck, or motorcycle used in all of these TV shows and movies. If he could not acquire the original, then he had a very faithful replica built. In this case, a 1950 Triumph TR5 in restored condition, imported from England with 7,400 miles. These specials were built between 1949 and 1958, and this one is done to a very high standard.
Well, I'm glad that the youngest guy on the crew remembers that episode that well. But apparently, once again, this is the motorcycle he drove during the episode, not where he jumped the shark.
Sit on it, Potsy.
$7,500, the price for that Fonzie motorcycle recreation. All right, now another motorcycle recreation rolling up behind it. This one you would have seen similar to what was on the Chips TV show, a 1979 Kawasaki KZ1000C.
Well, this is an original KZP version, the police model, given the 6th C in the VIN. It has all the police-specific features and upgrades, the dual overhead cam, 1-liter 4-cylinder engine, and shaft drive. And it is said this one was used in the TV series from 1977 to 1983.
And it must have been used for a while after the TV series, because I'm seeing 25,000, is it miles or kilometers on it? It's kilometers, so it did get used quite a bit, but it looks totally original and unrestored as far as the engine, the paint scheme, and all that stuff. So yeah, more or less a survivor as well.
Now, there's a lot of ways on here you can tell this was a police version and, let's say, a municipality-owned vehicle, because much like Army vehicles, the tire pressure is indicated in decal on the fender, both front and rear. So this one's certainly been well used, but it looks great.
And away it goes for $7,000, once again for that 1979 Kawasaki from the TV show Chips. Now, some of the most spectacular cars from the Stuart Berkowitz collection are getting ready to cross the block, so you want to get yourself a nice place to watch.
All right, everybody, repeat after me. Fantasy Island, Mr. Rourke, Ziplane, Ziplane. Hervé Villechaise's golf cart just sold, and it made more than $10,000.
Once again, another part of the Stuart Berkowitz collection. There's no shortage of fun stuff that's going to be crossing the block over the course of the next couple hours. And this is the Gilligan's Island golf cart that April previewed.
Yeah, so there's a real golf cart underneath this. On the TV show, they had to build something just to get around the island out of, bamboo and the stuff that they had. Obviously, a ridiculous premise to be stranded on a 3-hour tour outside of LA anyway. But yeah, this is a tribute to it. Bamboo construction, And yeah, I do love the hood ornament. That's the starfish. That is a really neat touch.
All right, so Jim Backus played millionaire Thurston B. Howell. Natalie Schaefer was his wife, Lovey. And this was their transport around the island. The Island Taxi, built by Bob Denver's character Gilligan, using items that he scrounged on the island. Eventually, he crashed it into the Kentucky totem pole on the island. So, a recreation. Razorfly Studios of Sylva, North Carolina, built this for Dr. Berkowitz.
And it just sold here at Barrett-Jackson for $15,000. That's exactly what it cost if you want to live the Gilligan Island lifestyle. A custom-built golf cart, this one formerly used by Jackie Gleason.
Well, the great one. You expect him to be on the links in anything less than a Rolls Royce? Well, this one says Royal Ride, not Rolls Royce, because it's a fiberglass body on a normal golf course. But at Inverary Country Club, north of Fort Lauderdale, the great one would play often on the 218-hole courses designed by Robert Trent Jones and would ride in style.
Well, my favorite Jackie Gleason role is Buford T. Justice in Smokey and the Bandit, and actually have a squad car tribute to that movie coming up here in a little bit. But yeah, these funny period golf carts of the time. This one doesn't have the bling of the Bing Crosby golf cart, but it looks like, what did he fit it out with? Some kind of vents, like either air conditioning or heat. So you see a little bit of bling in here, but there's that plaque made for Jackie Gleason, the great one.
Hydro pneumatic suspension. In other words, MG called it hydrolastic when they invented it in the early 60s. Wow. This is just very cool. What a piece of whimsy. Now, note that when they recreated the Buford T. Justice car for Dr. Berkowitz, he didn't get a Trans Am. Everybody's got a Smoky Trans Am in the Bandit Trans Am. He got the cop car, the Pontiac Le Mans. I am aghast that this golf cart is bid to $22,000.
Well, we've got it looks like we've got an internet bidder. We've also got people on the phone, and it's still going, Mike. We're past $23,000, $24,000, $35,000. Funny thing is, we have seen some real Rolls Royces, some of those Silver Shadows in the 60s that haven't brought this much money.
Well, they weren't driven by Jackie Gleason.
Yeah, we also have his limousine outside as well, so we'll see what our actual car with the name attached to it brings. Will be more. Yeah, but $33,000, holy smokes.
You know, Stuart Berkowitz, really, I don't think he was so much a car collector as he was a star collector. He wanted things associated with movies and TVs. And the Summit Racing sold sticker goes on, and away it goes for $34,000. The Jackie Gleason, the Great One golf cart.
Are we all speechless at that number? I am.
And remember, it took two people to get there. 1962 Citroen ID 19 up on the block.
This one was acquired from France in December 2022 by Dr. Berkowitz for his collection. These debuted in 1956, and it is not specified what movie this car would have been associated with. But there is a website, imcd.com. That stands for Internet Movie Cars Database. And you can look up your car and see what movies it was used in, or you can look up this one like I wish I had done earlier today.
Well, the quirky French styling has found its way into a lot of films, most certainly, as far as the in the period and nowadays. But this one is sitting up high right now because of the hydraulic suspension. I believe it's in its full height mode. It's adjustable with a lever, and that made for a great ride. You can also take off a wheel and drive on three wheels. The hydraulic suspension will compensate. Pretty innovative at the time. These things were way ahead when it came to technology in the hydraulic suspension department. So much so that Rolls-Royce and Bentley and Mercedes actually borrowed the design from here.
And if we can, let's get a look at those Michelin X tires. They are authentic, And yes, that's only about 5 inches, maybe 4 inches of tread width. That's all you got back then.
$10,000 for that 1962 Citroen ID19. From Citroen to DeSoto, a 1937 DeSoto. And this is another one from the Berkowitz collection.
And this one only has 35,800 miles, and it comes out of Massachusetts. And it pays homage to the cover of issue #1 of Action Comics. Action Comics issue 1 featured the Man of Steel hoisting a green 37 DeSoto sedan high in the air. So that is the tie to comic books for this one out of the Berkowitz collection.
That would have been great to have this on display, sort of hanging in the air with like a mannequin of the Man of Steel if he ever got to open his museum. It's a shame that it didn't happen. I believe that was the original intent when he bought all of these cars, but sadly he passed away before that could happen. And yeah, the DeSoto is very neat. Suicide doors. You see that iconic styling of the period in the pre-war.
So Craig Jackson was telling us that Dr. Berkowitz not only collected the great cars that are being sold here, but he collected movie and TV sets, some very famous ones, and from some movies collected the actual costumes that were used. Now, the purchasers of the cars will be given the contact information should they wish to acquire whatever else goes along with. Now, if they've got a copy of issue #1 of Action Comics, I think it's going to bring more than that DeSoto just did.
Yeah, absolutely. $7,500 for the DeSoto. Issue #1 will bring a lot more. Barrett-Jackson.com. If you want to see the full list of Stuart Berkowitz cars that are crossing the block, that's where you can go to get all the information of cars that we see here in Scottsdale. A 1983 Ford Explorer. This is, of course, a Jurassic Park tour vehicle recreation.
Yeah, this one is a recreation. It was a 100,000-mile Tennessee Explorer that was given a very authentic-looking wrap with the Jurassic Park movie graphics. So underneath, it's your average 100,000-mile Explorer, but here with, well, a little bit of whimsy and movie pedigree somewhat.
One thing it is missing, though, is the giant Vista roof, which you remember from the film where the kids were attacked and the T-Rex came through, and the only thing stopping them from getting eaten was that glass that punched down. The kids holding it up, of course, flipped over, ripped apart, thrown into a tree. What an iconic movie, Spielberg, just the imagination there. And the birth of CGI being so realistic. It's just one of those films, I guess, I don't know, I was 8 or 9 years old when it came out, and it stuck with me forever. It's one of my favorite films of all time. I have a Jeep at home, a Jurassic Park Jeep. I don't have the Explorer. The bid, though, pretty strong. I feel like $14,500.
Yeah, I think you better get some graphics for your Jeep, you know?
Of course, the favorite thing from that movie for me of all time is when the Tyrannosaurus Rex is chasing the car, and in the mirror it says, "Objects are larger than they appear."
Yeah, that's a federally required warning on every convex right side or passenger side exterior mirror to this day.
Well, and that Jurassic Park tour recreation vehicle just sold here at Barrett-Jackson for $20,000. Away it goes, all the stickers, all the graphic, and all the fun. All right, it looks like a Ferrari, but it's not. This is a Pontiac Fiero with a Ferrari body kit on it, made to recreate the car from National Lampoon's Vacation.
All right, the Pontiac Fiero had a mill and drill system on its space frame to allow this kind of customization. This kit is called a Mera, and it looks like a Ferrari 308. It's got Ferrari bumpers, Ferrari badges, Ferrari taillights. Now, the GTS would have a lift-off roof. This has a sunroof. How can you tell this is not a Ferrari 308? Come on around and I'll show you. The 308 has its gas filler behind this panel. The Fiero has it right out here on the fender.
Well, these were only made for a few years before Ferrari, understandably got angry and sued the company out of business. So for a few short short years, you could get these Mara body kits, and they were actually sold at dealers, like at Pontiac dealers, as legit cars, not something, you know, through the back door. So pretty incredible.
Now this was an expensive car to build because these are authentic Ferrari badges and tail lights. Not sure about the bumper. The Speedline wheels, similar to that used on the Ferrari 288 GTO. So somebody spent a lot of money building this one. Christy Brinkley not included.
I was going to say, this is the scene in the movie when Christy Brinkley's driving right beside the family truckster. $20,000 for that gentleman right there. And put the price on the sold sticker, and away it goes. All right, now we get to check in with the Flintmobile recreation from the Flintstones.
Well, everybody remembers, you know, Meet the Flintstones, Fred and Barney and Wilma and Betty. But did you know the Flintstones were simply an animated reboot of The Honeymooners with Jackie Gleason and Art Carney in what became the Fred and Barney roles?
Hey, Craig, can we get a yabba dabba doo? Yabba dabba doo! He's down here checking it out. It's not foot power, so you're not going to get in and push it along with your feet like this. They do actually have a golf cart chassis underneath it, so it does go on its own. You don't have to exercise.
So there was a live-action Flintstones movie, and that's what this one is from. And the movie grossed over $300 million. It was made on a $46 million budget. And this one was built using the original molds, although it did not appear in the movie. But yeah, it's an authentic Flintmobile through the courtesy of Fred's 2 feet, I think the line in the song goes, and the Yabba Dabba Doo license plate.
Yeah, John Goodman, Rick Moranis were in the movie. I think that was Elizabeth Taylor's final movie role for it, if you could believe that, for the movie version of the Flintstones. Just sold the Flintmobile for $25,000 here at Barrett-Jackson. Let's check in with April Rose.
Very important piece of movie history right here. The family truckster from National Lampoon's Vacation. Now, this is actually designed by George Barris. They made 5 for the movie because there were a lot of just horrendous stunts and it needed to survive. I mean, I love this just crazy, outlandish, stacked quad headlights right there on the side. Now, the color, metallic P. Very cool. Wood panel treatment throughout. The only issue is we still got Aunt Edna in the back. I think she rode on the roof for most of the movie. I don't think she's having a good time back there. Come on back. We're going here. We've got this leash. All right. They tied their dog up to the rear bumper. I feel like this is a little PSA for everyone. Don't tie your family pet or your children to the back of your car. Not really a good idea.
Yeah, we're all about safety. I love the Lou Glutz Motor license plate on the very front. Remember Fantasy Island? Well, this is a Plymouth Volare that's a recreation of the car that they used to meet the guests.
Well, a lot of TV shows and movies have sanctioned auto manufacturer tie-ins, and this was one. Plymouth paid money for the rights to customize a station wagon just like this one. And the guest stars that were picked up when they arrived at Fantasy Island were taken to the hotel by Mr. Rourke or Tattoo, Hervé Villechaize, in first a Jeep CJ7 and then a 1976 Plymouth Volare customized wagon.
I wish I had that smooth voice of Ricardo Montalban, you know. Of course, the spokesperson for Chrysler with that fine Corinthian leather, or the Wrath of Khan in Star Trek is Khan. I think my favorite movie with him, though, was The Naked Gun. I think this is a villain in Naked Gun. That was a great one.
I don't recall a Plymouth Volare bringing this kind of money at Barrett-Jackson ever.
Well, this is all done to go off to that island look, right? You had the Fiat Jollies that had this look, you had the VW Things. You had a variety of vehicles. They were just taking that same look and putting it onto a Plymouth Volare, and this one just sold for $30,000. Another car out of the Stuart Berkowitz collection of movie and TV cars. Well, a little bit earlier, we saw VW cross the block, and we talked about how The real Herbie was a much earlier Volkswagen, and we've got a recreation here, a 1962 Beetle.
Well, I told you this story back in October, but now I have the rest of the details. This was a Disney movie, Herbie the Love Bug. The producer of the movie was a huge Los Angeles Dodgers fan, and he was the person who dictated that Herbie would always wear number 53 for his favorite player, the fireballing right-hand starter, Don Drysdale.
Well, one cool thing I'm noticing, if you come back up to the front, I was wondering why the bumper was split, and they actually put a pull handle here to where when you pull this back, Herbie can kind of smile and move and shake just like in the film, so they even try to make it a little bit alive with this one. A cool touch, but otherwise a great tribute with that rag top on top, the appropriate color. So much fun.
Well, Herbie was not only a great movie franchise with several sequels, but Dean Jones as the down-and-out driver, and Buddy Hackett as his kind-hearted mechanic. Well, that was recreated in how many different racing movies? Days of Thunder, Talladega Nights, and on and on and on.
And the concept of having the car that was alive had been done before, but it just did it so well here. And it's much better than, of course, Christine. You know, it's just a much brighter, happier view. Strong money, though, $29,000, as you can see on the right-hand side. That woman is handling the internet bid, so we've got somebody on the internet bidding against somebody here in the room.
Here's on number 161, ladies and gentlemen.
And it just hammered sold. $30,000 for that 1962 Beetle Herbie recreation. Coming up in just a little bit, how about Speed Racer, a recreation? It's got the blades up front. It's got the fins in the rear. It looks real. What a spectacular car that will be crossing the block in just a little bit here at Barrett-Jackson.
The Pacers ready to cruise the strip or rock the crowd at Stan's Donuts.
Well, if you've ever had the feeling that you're not worthy, this is the car for you. A 1976 AMC Pacer, a recreation of the car from Wayne's World.
Well, let's start with the Pacer itself. It was advertised as the first wide, small car, and it was a way for AMC, who was always cash-strapped, to get a new model into production using a lot of existing tooling because they were building cars that were this wide, but not this short. Well, it became the Mirthmobile in Wayne's World, and yes, this has the Twizzler dispenser and all of the other modifications that you saw in the movie. Now, a couple of years ago in Las Vegas, Barrett-Jackson sold the actual Pacer from Wayne's World, and Dr. Berkowitz, being unable to acquire that, had this built as a faithful replica. This has the 258 cubic inch 6-cylinder engine, and that was a torque monster. It won races in IMSA's Radial Challenge Series with Amos Johnson and friends. And on the high banks of Daytona, these were called the Flying Fish Bowls. But this one speaks to a different generation of moviegoers.
Yeah, party on, Garth. The cup holder dispenser there, the Twizzler. Yeah, it's all correct. He does such a good job creating faithful recreations when he has to, as far as the real deal as well, when he can get a hold of those. But yeah, this one very well done, most certainly, of that iconic film with Mike Myers and Dana Carvey.
Well, it just brought solid money here, $30,000, the recreation of the Wayne's World Mirthmobile. Congratulations to those folks. Up there now, a custom-built golf cart. Yeah, you guessed it. This was formerly used and built for Bob Hope.
In fact, he drove this in a 1973 Ford Galaxy 500 commercial. Bob Hope was a famed actor in the 1940s, a comedian, and a television host into the 1970s. But he is best remembered for bringing entertainers of all types overseas to Southeast Asia to entertain the troops on the USO tours. That is his greatest legacy. He was an avid golfer. He wasn't great at it, but he had a lot of fun, and this piece of whimsy is part of it, this 1973 custom-built golf cart.
Well, and he had that iconic cartoon of himself with a profile, the caricature with the long nose, which was very much exaggerated, and it's showing that on the golf cart as well. One thing that's kind of funny, come look back here, we have one of the earliest versions of what I believe would have been a backup camera here on the back, which is pretty impressive for its day, I guess in the 1970s. Bob Hope, pretty impressive himself, lived to be over 100 years old as well, 1903 to 2003, I believe.
TV monitor up front there. And this was built by George Barris. George and his brother Sam were among Hollywood's customizing elite, along with Gene Winfield and Dean Jeffries and hosts of others.
Check out the number. We're at $50,000. You think about it, it's the combination of George Barris royalty, a guy who did spectacular cars, and Bob Hope, an actor known internationally for his work. So the perfect combinations, the perfect storm, and right now, this is the number 3 seller of the day.
I believe his golf course, his golf tournament continues to this day, and you can see a lot of the badges inside from the period as Desert Classic Tournament.
$60,000. My personal favorite, the Road movies with he and Bing Crosby. Great stuff. $60,000 for that custom-built golf cart done by George Barris for Bob Hope. All right, a 1965 Sunbeam Tiger, but this one's pretty cool and special, a Get Smart recreation.
Yeah, this is another example of a car company paying to play in a movie or TV series. Get Smart was a TV series that parodied the James Bond franchise. Don Adams played Secret Agent Maxwell Smart. He had a shoe phone. He was kind of bumbling, but successful, largely due to the efforts of Slinky Agent 99, played by Barbara Feldon. The series aired from 1965 to 1970. Mel Brooks and Buck Henry created the series, their famous names, and here is this modified Sunbeam Tiger.
I just remember seeing it in reruns and just being captivated by that opening title sequence, you know, where they go down the elevator into just, the intricacy of it was just absolutely wild. Of course, it was a goofy parody. And the Sunbeam, yeah, it was sort of kitted out to be a Bond car, of course, with a goofy twist. And you can see they actually did it with this car. You have the machine gun coming out of the hood right here, which definitely, that wasn't in a stock Tiger.
No, but this is just so much fun. And just the image of Don Adams. Physical comedy is so hard to do. And he did it so well, and he's so well timed. Some of his, signature lines, from that show when things would not go as intended.
Yeah, they actually use multiple cars. They had an Opel GT, some other things, but really it's this Sunbeam Tiger that for me was the iconic car. And the interesting story about Don Adams is that when they were asking him to do this show, he wasn't too sure about it. And he said, what I really want is a cut of the action. They gave him a percentage of the profits of the show, which, guess what, turned out to be a very smart move.
I bet that show still lives in reruns, at least on the internet, if not on linear TV.
And don't forget, they made a movie version, or a modern movie version as well. The infamous cone of silence. Remember when they had to have those conversations?
Yes. Again, Mel Brooks and Buck Henry created the series, and they were just comic geniuses.
And that one just sold for $22,000 to the gentleman who's got a good laugh because he bought a really interesting car that's going to have fun stories to tell. Welcome back to Barrett-Jackson. Yep, that is indeed a Shaggin' Wagon, a replica that was made for the Stuart Berkowitz collection, and that will be coming up on the block in just a moment. Meanwhile, we saw the golf cart that was used by Jackie Gleason sell a little while ago. Now it's the car he actually drove, a 1978 Lincoln Continental. all the full stretch. It just sold here at Barrett-Jackson for $40,000. And from a Lincoln Continental to a Rolls-Royce Phantom 5. This is from 1965.
Well, when you're talking about artwork or collectible cars, provenance is important. This is a 1965 Phantom 5, sold new in England to Captain George E. Coles, Esquire of Camden Farm Estates Limited. Mulliner Park Ward did the body to their design 2003, and UK Specialists redid it before it was offered for sale in October 22. Now this one was in the Netflix series The Crown, carrying Prince Charles and the Princess of Wales, and also used in a couple of music videos.
Well, it's certainly an icon of the period where you would expect someone with a name like Mike just said being carted around in it. Some aristocracy, some British royalty. It does have that look. And let's go inside and take a peek as well, because it is very pretty on the inside. You have the jump seats that are deployed currently, but they would be put away normally for royalty. You see the crystal, sort of the bar inside, and then all of that wood. Also a partition, full glass to where you can have some privacy as well.
Well, note the length of that passenger cabin. The Phantom 5 had a wheelbase a foot longer than the Silver Wraith, carried the same 6.3-liter V8, and General Motors supplied 4-speed hydromatic transmission. Just 516 of these were made over a 3-year period, and then they were finished by different bodybuilders like Mulliner, Park Ward, or James Young.
Well, it does look like there's one addition to it, some aftermarket air conditioning in the front and back, which I think would help this thing a lot. You'd be sweating it out in the 60s without AC.
Well, it just sold here for $39,000, and I saw a little bit of paint issue on the top, but overall, a nice car if you were going to be working a restoration. All it needs is a repaint, and boy, you'd have a really nice looking car. All right, from something really luxurious to something really, I'm not sure what to say about this. A recreation of the Shaggin' Wagon from Dumb and Dumber.
Well, just when you think you can't get any dumber, you go and buy something like this and totally redeem yourself. Whoever's going to buy this Muttmobile from, well, it's a tribute to Dumb and Dumber. But yeah, the shag pile carpet here on top, all over the place. And in the beginning of the film, he was using it. He was still employed grooming dogs. Of course, he got fired. Jim Carrey's character got fired as a limo driver, and they started their cross-country trek to redeliver the Samsonite case to Mary Swanson in this crazy machine.
Wow. Do you have the whole movie memorized?
They've watched it 100 plus times. I'm a big Jim Carrey fan.
All right, so underneath this sits a 89 Ford E150 Econoline, all metal classics of Caldwell, Idaho. Built it into this unforgettable tribute to the movie prop van. I think the ears actually, they flap. This is just indescribable. It's got a 5-liter V8 4-speed automatic. The odometer's rolled over, but who cares? It's the Shaggin' Wagon.
Oh, they've covered up the license plate, which is interesting. I didn't realize they did that. But yeah, you lift its leg here on the side to fill it up, just like in the film. Let's see, right there. Yeah. And of course, his leg caught on fire when he was filling up, flirting with the gal at one time. But yeah, eventually they traded this for a moped to get to Colorado to make it to the finish line. Pretty hilarious movie. I love it.
So did this movie launch or end Lauren Holly's career? Because she played, Mary Swanson.
I don't know, but it was a big year for Jim Carrey because he had The Mask, he had Dumb and Dumber, and then what was the third film? Ace Ventura, Pet Detective, all in one year. What a legacy for him.
Incredible. And so is this.
$28,000 the current bid. Boy, and it's not just, slapping on some carpeting on the outside of a van. There was a lot of work that went into this.
So credit the Farrelly brothers and Bennett Yellen for writing the movie.
Well, credit the folks who just bought it for $28,000, that recreation of the Shaggin' Wagon from Dumb and Dumber. A 1974 Dodge Monaco. This one, a recreation of the police car, not the police car, the car they used in the Bluesmobile in the Blues Brothers movie.
It's got a cop motor. It's got cop tires, cop suspension, cop shocks. What do you say? Is it the new Bluesmobile or what?
Very nice, Mike. Very, very nice.
I saw the original on the Universal lot, about a year after the movie came out. They'd had it on tour with the movie, and this looks a whole lot nicer than that one did. That one was pretty used up. Gone in 60 Seconds, the original Toby Halicki movie, crashed 93 cars in the movie. A record that was not broken until the Blues Brothers.
And that's what I remember about the film, the chase, which was unbelievable, and then all the cameos, all the singers, brought back a lot of memories. Cab Calloway coming back and doing that moment on stage, that was great.
The Blues Brothers, the boys were on a mission from God, right, to save the orphanage, and in the process, relaunched the sales of great artists like Sam and Dave, and go on and on. Gosh, who else was in the movie down there on Maxwell Street? Aretha Franklin, of course, was in the movie. James Brown was in the movie. That whole group of music. Ray Charles had a great resurgence thanks to John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd and the Blues Brothers. The backing band, Steve Cropper, Duck Dunn, Willie Hall, Lou Marini. They were all the Stax Folk Band for Sam and Dave and Eddie Floyd and Otis Redding and all those great artists in the 60s. And sorry, I'm forgetting we're auctioning a car here.
Well, you think about it, it was the evolution again from a skit from Saturday Night Live, just as Wayne's World, the car we saw earlier, evolved from the TV show Saturday Night Live, the skit, into a movie, and the same thing was true with this.
Well, obviously a lot of people remember the film and enjoy it because we're at $35,000. What a number.
Well, that's because we've got a skybox bidder, we've got somebody in the crowd, and in fact it just sold for $35,000. The Bluesmobile recreation from the Blues Brothers movie. Away it goes off into the sunset here at Barrett-Jackson. Remember, we've got more cars yet to cross the block, all kinds of great stuff. I love the fact that they got the family truckster out there. And on the left, anybody remember the TV show My Mother the Car? Yep, that's exactly that car that's going across the block before too long.
Yeah, Jerry Van Dyke.
So that wraps up our first 2 hours of coverage here on FYI, but we are just getting started on this Tuesday here in Scottsdale. We still have 4 more hours to go. Stick around.
What a number.
Well, that's because we've got a skybox bidder, we've got somebody in the crowd, and in fact it just sold for $35,000. The Bluesmobile recreation from the Blues Brothers movie. Away it goes off into the sunset here at Barrett-Jackson. Remember, we've got more cars yet to cross the block, all kinds of great stuff. I love the fact that they got the family truckster out there. And on the left, anybody remember the TV show My Mother the Car? Yep, that's exactly that car that's going across the block before too long.
Yeah, Jerry Van Dyke.
Speed Racer, a recreation. It's got the blades up front. It's got the fins in the rear. It looks real. What a spectacular car that'll be crossing the block in just a little bit here at Barrett-Jackson. Today, it's Tuesday, tons of fun and tons of whimsy with the Stuart Berkowitz collection. Cars to mimic and to look like cars from movie and TV shows like this one right here. A Speed Racer recreation.
Well, they're all recreations because Speed Racer was a cartoon, part of the Japanese Magnus series, and pow! $100,000 bid for this one.
Well, they did actually make a live-action film not that long ago with some real cars. But yeah, this one is a tribute based on a C4 Corvette. And yeah, it's coming around you, so you better look live. He's revving up the powerful Mach 5 for 100 grand. Whoa!
That fast. Boy, they brought it up there. Somebody bid it was like a knockout punch. Like, look, I don't want to mess with anybody. I want to bid $100,000 and I want to take it home. And that's exactly what just happened. But if you look at this up close, it's been beautifully done. So I can see why it would bring this kind of money, $100,000 for this Speed Racer recreation done on a 1989 Corvette chassis. How about a 1960 Ford Fairlane police car recreation? You guessed it, from the Andy Griffith Show.
Now, I live about an hour south of Mount Airy, North Carolina, which was Andy Griffith's boyhood home. And that is the basis for Mayberry, is Mount Airy. Mount Pilot, well, that's Pilot Mountain, and so forth. So you can visit Mount Airy, and you can tour the city in a replica Mayberry police car, just like this one. We had one of these sell at Barrett-Jackson some years ago for such stupid money that at the next Barrett-Jackson auction, there were 7 replica police cars and even a Border Patrol car. But this is a 1960 Ford Fairlane 500, and it has been rigged up with the bubblegum machine on the roof, the spotlights, the two-way radio to replicate the City of Mayberry patrol car.
Yeah, but it looks like we have, well, maybe Don Knotts laying in the back, but then Ron Howard's as a child in the film in the front seat, or I guess the TV show. But yeah, what a cool walk down memory lane this whole collection has been so far. Wow.
Originally, when the show debuted, Andy Griffith was going to be the funny guy, but Don Knotts, with his caricatures and faces and such great physical comedy, it was very apparent to Andy early on that they kind of needed to switch roles, and they did. So Don Knotts was the deputy, and one of his signature deals was he was allowed to have 1 bullet.
Okay, what I want to know is, did he ever use that bullet? I don't recall him ever shooting, but I think at some point they might have considered it. But yeah, I always remember 1 bullet.
I believe they figured it would be totally out of character for Don Knotts' character, Bonnie Fife, to actually fire that gun.
Unless, of course, it was done accidentally, which would have been totally in character. $20,000, the final bid. That's the sales price for this Andy Griffith recreation police car, the kind that Barney Fife would have driven. Out in the McGuire staging lanes, it's time to check in with April Rose.
Man, this is so fun. This is why you need to come to Barrett-Jackson and see all these beautiful recreations up close. The details are out of this world. This is the Munster Coach recreation, of course, originally built by George Barris. I love the lanterns as headlights. You would also see those in a crypt. Got a stock Model T grill right there. 10 intakes, gleaming gold. Now, they're non-functional, but that would have meant there were 10 carburetors, so a lot of power for this puppy. And casket handles on the side. Ooh, spooky. We've got velvet or velour. I don't know, velvet or velour, which one it is. Red interior. I love the drapes on the side. More lanterns. And George Barris was ahead of his time. You got 4 rows of seating for your entire family, and of course another lantern as the tail light. Now, if this isn't good for you, Grandpa also built the Dragula casket car. Rick, which one do you like better? If you could just choose one to maybe park in your living room, because that's where it belongs.
Absolutely, the Dragula. I just love the look of that. I mean, the Munsters Mobile, don't get me wrong, it's classic, but the Dragula just looks so darn cool. And I remember when whenever they would have it, Grandpa driving around, they'd always do it in like hyper speed, so it was always fun to watch. 1976 Pontiac Le Mans that's done as a Smokey and the Bandit patrol car recreation.
So for Hal Needham's directorial debut, the great stuntman who conceived Smokey and the Bandit, Pontiac agreed to give him 2 Trans Ams, but they could have all the Le Mans they wanted. And that became the patrol car for Buford T. Justice and his son. So this one is a recreation. It comes out of Connecticut, but, you know, Hal Needham always said, the critics hate my movies. My banker loves them. Smokey and the Bandit was built on a $4 million budget, and it earned over $127 million in its initial release.
Well, what we have here is a total lack of respect for the law. That's one of the iconic quotes, right? Is that right?
What we have here is a failure to commit. No, that was Ron Steiger a decade earlier.
Total lack of respect for the law. Or
you got it.
Some bee couldn't close an umbrella. That was another one, I think you said. But yeah, it was the second highest grossing film in '77 behind Star Wars. So imagine, yeah, small budget, goofy film with Burt Reynolds, barely behind Star Wars.
Well, this is now the second highest grossing car of the day, $70,000. That's the bid. That's what it just sold for. Now tied as the #2 sale of the day.
And apologies, I was thinking of Cool Hand Luke.
which is both great lines, both great movies.
But find another, I feel like, with that one. That's the problem. If you have the Smokey Bandit Trans Am, finding Smokey's car, impossible.
Exactly, exactly. Up on the block now, a 1921 Ford Model T, My Mother the Car, TV stunt car.
Yeah, now My Mother the Car was only on the air for one season. Jerry Van Dyke, Dick Van Dyke's brother, was the star. Ann Southern, who had previously starred in a series called Private Secretary, became the voice of Mother because Jerry Van Dyke's mom was reincarnated as this 1921 28 Porter. These cars were built from a 1921 Model T. Norm Grabowski, who built the famed 77 Sunset Strip Kooky T. Ed Burns car, built this for the series My Mother the Car.
I gotta say, this is one that I had never caught an episode. I don't think it ever made reruns, at least anything that I saw. But yeah, what a premise to get greenlit here. Mom comes back as a car, and see why it only lasted one season. It's a cool rig, though.
Yeah, hilarity ensued, but not so much. A lot of folks thought that this was a Maxwell, and a lot of Maxwell parts were used. Norm Grabowski built it, but then to speed it up, Norm Breedlove, whose son, Craig Breedlove, went on to set World Land Speed records, did a lot of later modifications, but this is the actual car. And it was created by George Barris and company, Norm Grabowski, doing the work in what was certainly an interesting landmark and never to be repeated TV series until what? Knight Rider? Was that the next talking car?
Oh, but a reincarnation into a car, that takes it all to a new level. And you know, like you say, it was just one season, which is why Tyler doesn't remember it. For some stupid reason, I actually remember him. I must have watched it that one year it was actually on.
Now, this car has quite a history because it went on to Harrah's Museum in Reno, and then to a museum in Maine, the Seal Cove Museum, and then the Hollywood Star Cars Museum in Gatlinburg, Tennessee, before Dr. Berkowitz acquired it.
I just found something really cool. So this is how they're able to get it to drive without anybody being seen. There's a seat mounted low in here, and then a chain with a steering wheel to turn the front wheels, and then you have a gear selector so Mother could drive herself. You could hide a driver underneath with, say, a blanket and drive it around. Really cool tech back in the day.
Well, that's right, because if Mom got reincarnated as a car, she'd be able to drive herself, but there'd be nobody in the driver's seat. I'll bet episodes of this show do not live on YouTube or anywhere easily accessible, and I'll be happy to be proven wrong.
I was going to say, I would never doubt anything. But of course, you mentioned Jerry Van Dyke was the star of the show, and of course, he is the younger brother of Dick Van Dyke.
Speaking of talking cars, what's next?
$15,000.
Hey, Rick, we've got a kit recreation from Knight Rider. This is so cool. I love the Speedster style back cover over here, of course. Come on down here. We've got the yoke style steering wheel, tons of LED lights and fuses. I just want to press every single button. I'd probably get in a lot of trouble there. Now, let's take a look under the hood with our engine cam, brought to you by Blueprint Engines. Now, it's got a 5.7 liter Crossfire fuel injected motor. This was GM's first go around with fuel injection in Firebirds. The following year, it'd be called tuned port injection, which was an upgrade. Now, Rick, I have a serious question for you. What do you think, or who do you think was better with in which show? Was it Baywatch with Hasselhoff or Knight Rider with Hasselhoff? Which Hasselhoff do you like better?
Well, I got to go with the cars. I mean, come on. Knight Rider, Kit 2000. I mean, come on. You got to look at the automobiles.
All right, so in the Knight Rider show, the David Hasselhoff show, the car's nickname is KITT, K-I-T-T, which stood for?
Knight Industries
2000. Knight Industries 2000.
Well done.
It's funny because I was thinking of it as the KITT 2000, but I forgot the 2000 was the TT.
So the blinking lights here in the front, they kind of were attached to a VU meter, so each time KITT spoke, the lights blinked. And if KITT was really upset, you know, they kind of all blinked at once. But basically, this was just an original unmodified Firebird with a 305 V8 and 4-speed automatic transmission. Glenn Larson created the series Knight Rider, and David Hasselhoff's character was Michael Knight, former detective and crime fighter with a new identity.
Well, of course, Knight Rider wasn't a convertible, but I think it looks great as a convertible. It makes it easy to see all the interior where they have that yoke steering wheel and the digital gauges, and they blended it into the back sort of as a roadster. Look, I like it. I think Kit should have been a Burt from the film.
Now look at the dash, and look at that wraparound dash. That was very new and revolutionary then when the show was on the air from 1982 to 1986. But then a lot of cars developed that cockpit-style dash with the wraparound, not necessarily as a result. There's a lot of Knight Industries logos there. The LED front scanner with the audio function, acquired by Dr. Berkowitz in 2020.
Well, it's been interesting watching the bidders. We got this gentleman that you can see on the right who's actively been in it, and then we got these folks up in the skybox. They seem to be having a discussion. Should we not? I think she wants it, not too sure about him. It's always funny to watch how the bidders are going through the process here.
And I agree, Tyler. I like it as a convertible with the, you can call them speedster humps or you can call them headrest fairings. Sharp. Look at that dash light up.
Yeah, it's got all lit up now. You can see everything. This is a really, really good tribute. And you can see in the back, I guess it would be like a backup camera or whatever camera they put in there. A pretty modern TV set in the side with the driver's focus gauges. Yeah, really well done.
But if it was a convertible, could it have properly protected David Hasselhoff from all those bullets and rain and terror?
And his perm, you know, can't hassle the Hoff with his perm, right?
Yeah, he didn't need a roll bar. He had that hair, you know?
Well, that's interesting. This car had stalled out about $28,000, and now it's jumped up to $38,000. And that's where it hammer sold, $38,000 to those folks up here on the block who jumped in at the last minute to claim the kit, the David Hasselhoff recreation. We'll come right back. Love this, a Chitty Chitty Bang Bang recreation on a 1968 Ford.
You may not remember that story, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, the magical car, but you certainly know its author, Ian Fleming, creator of the James Bond novels. And this, of course, did become a movie. Look at that beautiful boat tail and woodwork and wicker. Wow.
It is a fine four-fendered friend is what it is. It is a great, great car. I watched this movie over and over and over again on VHS because it was 3 hours long, and on the road trip to Colorado, we had the conversion van with a little TV. This cassette got worn out. The one note I would give is the female character's name is Truly Scrumptious, which is quite a name. It's like your name of your favorite dancer, not really like a movie woman name.
But that is such an Ian Fleming name. Sounds like a ruptured duck.
You know, just a little while ago, we had the car from Jerry Van Dyke, and of course, this is the car that Dick Van Dyke was driving, his brother.
Yeah, and this one is a replica, but it does have Dick Van Dyke's autograph. You can look inside right here. There's the plaque in brass, and sort of that brass era styling there, but here is Dick Van Dyke's signature. So cool. Almost 100 years old himself.
Well, it is now then tied as the #2 sale of the day. There's a three-way tie with the Pontiac Le Mans that came out of Smokey and the Bandits, a recreation, and a Peterbilt custom pickup truck that sold earlier in the day.
Very important piece of movie history right here. That family truckster from National Lampoon's Vacation. Now, this is actually designed by George Barris. They made 5 for the movie because there were a lot of just horrendous stunts and it needed to survive. I mean, I love this just crazy, outlandish, stacked quad headlights right there on the side. Now, the color, metallic P. Very cool. Wood panel treatment throughout. The only issue is we still got Aunt Edna in the back. I think she rode on the roof for most of the movie. I don't think she's having a good time back there. Come on back. We're going here. We've got this leash. All right. They tied their dog up to the rear bumper. I feel like this is a little PSA for everyone. Don't tie your family pet or your children to the back of your car. Not really a good idea, Rick.
The 1982 Ford Crown Victoria. No, it's not a Ford Crown Victoria. This is a family truckster.
A Wagon Queen family truckster purchased at Lou Glutz Motors for the movie National Lampoon's Vacation. And my favorite line in the whole movie, when Clark Griswold, Chevy Chase, is presented with the car that he's buying, which is not the car he ordered, salesman Eugene Levy says, "You think you hate it now, wait till you drive it."
Yeah, that metallic pea color is not what he ordered. That was the color code for it. And he wanted his car back, and they had already crushed it. It was completely destroyed. So he had no choice to embark upon his disastrous family vacation in this, and hilarity ensued. Of course, Grandma dying, getting strapped to the roof, the dog getting dragged along, getting launched. So much calamity, and then go to Wally World, and it's closed. Sorry, folks.
John Candy was the guard, and it was closed. Look at those Dodge Diplomat headlights, or maybe Ford LTD headlights. 2 stacks of them, wood grain everywhere. Look at the hood ornament. Okay, what was that? Was that a Rolex crown from which 2 of the points were removed on either side? Maybe. Oh my gosh. Unbelievable.
And it does have some of the luggage in the back to make it even more screen accurate. But this thing, it looks like it was freshly done and very, very well done. 47 grand.
George Barris created the Wagon Queen family truckster for the movie. They made 5 of them for the movie, most of which were destroyed in stunts. One was sold several years ago at Barrett-Jackson, which included a wonderful note from co-star Beverly D'Angelo about her memories of the car and of making the movie. This one had already had the paint and some of the trim when it was acquired by Dr. Berkowitz in 1995 out of Illinois, but it got the full family truckster conversion. Wow.
I think it was Eugene Levy who sold him the car, so I always remember that. But yeah, you got the leash on the back that once upon a time was supposed to have a dog, but now it just has Tyler racing after it. All right, April Rose previewed this one, a 1923 Ford Model T. Nope, it's a Munster Coach recreation.
Wow, that is quite a 289 Ford under hood with 10 one-barrel carburetors. And the Munsters were a TV show. Fred Gwynn was Herman Munster. Yvonne DiCarlo was in it. And the Munsters were kind of born out of the Charles Addams family cartoons that appeared in the New Yorker. And George Barris and Tom Daniel designed the Munster Coach. Tex Smith started to build. Dick Dean finished it because Barris was very, very busy. Les Tompkins, Bud Coons were involved. And wow, what a crazy, crazy piece this is. And it is all fully functional. Drive this around, drive it home.
And it was created by the same people who started the TV show Leave It to Beaver. The idea was to take the concept of the Leave It to Beaver family, that all-American group, and spin it out into this group of, well, you know, monsters, you know, Frankenstein and vampires. It was really well done. It was only on for 2 seasons, but boy, one of those TV shows we remember to this day.
Well, I can't believe I'm saying this, but let's take a look at the chassis cam on the Munster Mobile. Very clean underneath. You can see that single leaf spring, and then, yeah, modern V8 under the hood, that exhaust going out the side. Very, very clean underneath. A normal drive shaft. You can see modern fuel fittings there in the back. And, yeah, I think I see it. Here comes the diff, and yeah, those are modern coilover suspension, so this probably rides a lot better than, say, the stock Munster Mobile or old T-Bucket. Pretty well built underneath.
I'll tell you what, we're closing in on $100,000. Remember, this is not an original Munster Coach. That one, I believe, is at the Volo Auto Museum. This is a recreation, but to be honest with you, it is a very faithfully done recreation.
That's because, Rick, it was an authorized recreation. There was demand for these, so George Barris commissioned advanced restorations in Sacramento to do the authorized replicas like this one. Not sure how many they actually built.
I'm looking to see they actually made the rear lantern tail light functional. Yep, there is a wire back there. Very impressive.
And everybody there is happy. $91,000 for the Munster Recreation. What a beautiful day it's been here in Scottsdale, Arizona. Sun's starting to go down, and you see all the tents that are down below the facility here, where hundreds and hundreds of cars are on display. A chance to look at it before they cross the block. And the last 3 vehicles that crossed the block and sold, you can see them right there. And that one, lot 170, it says a 23 Ford Model T, but you know it as the Dragula Recreation. That sold for $56,000, and $91,000 was for the Munsters Coach Recreation. Meanwhile, we got a Beverly Hillbillies custom hot rod.
So the Beverly Hillbillies was a long-running TV show about a family who accidentally struck oil in the Ozarks, sold their property for millions, and moved to enjoy the good life in Beverly Hills. Well, part of the good life was Jethro building this hot rod. Max Baer was Jethro. I believe he's the only one of the Beverly Hillbillies cast who is still living. And this was a 1921 Oldsmobile modified into a surf wagon and converted to run a 69 Olds 442 power plant.
So yeah, this is the real deal, built by Barris, used in the TV show, and it looks like it has the original paint, you know, of that period in the 60s and 70s with that deep flake metallic. It's showing its patina now, but yeah, the stacks up top I don't think are functional. They're all a little bit crooked, but yeah, very, very goofy thing. I noticed in the back with its wooden aerodynamics here that it has 2 parachutes to deploy in the back to in your drag sweat to stop quickly. This thing is absolutely hilarious.
Jethro's name was Jethro Bodine. Note the stickers down here near the steps. You see one for Barris Custom Industries, and the other is for MPC. That's Model Products
Mike,
Company.
look at the price.
I was going to say, we're at $135,000 for this Jethro Beverly Hillbillies custom hot rod. Now we're at $150,000.
I guess somebody else struck some black gold or Texas tea, and they want to relive it too, the Beverly Hillbillies.
Well, once again, a long-running, very successful TV show. The original car, touched by George Barris. It's got the right combination, and I'm not saying it had the right look, but it definitely had everything somebody wanted. $150,000, and that means we have to check out our Hagerty top 5 sellers, because what a list it is right now. We've got the $150,000 Beverly Hillbilly car. That number 2 says Corvette, but the reality is that was the Speed Racer car. Number 3 says Model T, but that was the Munsters Coach.
That's got to be our weirdest top sellers of all time. Most certainly.
Absolutely. But you know, it just makes the point that there's a lot of interest in these cars coming across the block. Just as when we were out and about looking at them, people love to look at them. Now, we've got another Beverly Hillbillies vehicle up there, but this one is a recreation.
All right, so here's the rest of the backstory. Jed Clampett, in the song by Flatt and Scruggs, was out in the woods hunting for some food, and up from the ground came
Bubbling crude
oil, that
black
is.
gold.
Yeah, black gold Texas tea. So they packed off the family, Jed Clampett, Granny Clampett, played by Irene Ryan, who was about the same age as Buddy Ebsen, who played Jed. And then Donna Douglas and Max Baer, the kids, they all hopped in this old jalopy, again built by George Barris for show producer Paul Henning. And he told Barris, create a vehicle worthy of a John Steinbeck novel for this fictional family. So here's an early 20s Oldsmobile base on a vintage Ford truck chassis, and the Clampetts and all their possessions set out and drove all the way to Beverly Hills.
Got them a mansion with a cement pond, and their financial manager, Mr. Drysdale, was just exacerbated trying to keep them going. I love the show. Still showing on reruns to this day, and always stop and watch when it's on. This one is a replica, it's a tribute, but also in this collection is the real deal that's selling later this week.
This one came out of the Volo Museum outside of Chicago and was purchased by Dr. Berkowitz for the museum that he was building. And it's I mean, we can say it's a pretty faithful recreation, but how can you tell if it is or it isn't?
Yeah, just the right amount of rust in there, everything that they've thrown in the back. Boy, they've done a great job on building this. And as you mentioned, we're going to see the real thing coming across the block, which I believe was actually sold here at Barrett-Jackson once before. But obviously, we saw that $150,000 Beverly Hillbillies Jethro Mobile go through.
Hey, look at what Cliffy is holding up right here. This is Granny's indispensable home brewed rheumatism cure. What do you say, Cliff? Shot for you, shot for me?
Oh, absolutely. You and I can chip a cup of that later on.
Maybe a little later.
It'll only take $28,000 if you want to buy that Triple X, because that's exactly the hammer price for this car recreation from the Beverly Hillbillies. Barrett-Jackson.com, the place to go to for all of the list of cars that are crossing the block both today and throughout the rest of the week. All right, up on the block right now, one of my all-time favorite cars. This is a 1966 Chrysler Imperial, a recreation of the Black Beauty from the Green Hornet.
Well, the Green Hornet, a TV show in 1966 and 67, the TV version of a long-running radio serial. The Green Hornet and Kato, who was his assistant. They were crime fighters. This began as a 1966 Imperial. And again, Barris Customs, they built the Black Beauty, did the final touches on this one.
Yeah, very cool. It has the bumper delete in lieu of missiles. You can see all the Imperial logos completely gone, as are the taillights. Instead, they're put into the trunk. The door handles have been shaved, and then you have a bullet deflector on top, sort of a dual sunroof here. Shaved door handles on the inside, the front, also the bumper delete as well. The 66 Imperial, one of my favorites. I've had a few. It's the first year of the 440 in the Imperial, and a great design, but obviously radically different with the Green Hornet treatment.
Now, the Green Hornet began as a radio serial in 1936, about the same time as the Lone Ranger came to TV in the mid-1960s. And so, Rick, what was it about the Green Hornet?
First off, you had Bruce Lee as Kato. And I always remember that moment when the guy who played the Green Hornet, Van Williams, would jump in and say, "Let's roll, Kato." Another one of those shows that didn't have a long run, but if it was a show you watched, and once again, I was a kid, I love cars, and this thing, you got to remember the way they photographed it. It was always seemed to be at night, it was dark, it was moody, it was a great looking car.
The signatures on this car include Adam West and Burt Ward, because the Green Hornet appeared in a two-part episode in season 2 of Batman. Dean Jeffries and George Barris, customizers. Dick Dean, Van Williams, who played the Green Hornet, and other personalities have signed this one.
Yeah, George Barris, we talk about him an awful lot, but Dean Jeffries was also a stud in the movie world back then, doing an awful lot of the movie cars. I remember his studio was just over the freeway. When I lived in Los Angeles, we'd drive by and we could see what he was working on out front.
I got to meet him, and he was not only just a great character, but he was very appreciative of what we'd done on these shows to help preserve his legacy, because he designed a lot of cars that, well, other people tried to take credit for. He was quite a builder and quite a designer, and he is missed.
$38,000 for the Green Hornet. A lot of movie and TV, real vehicles as well as some replicas. And up on the block right now, we have the first for today of the Berkowitz collection. And this one is a motorcycle, a Yamaha Enduro, made up to look like a bat cycle recreation from the first generation of the Batman TV show.
Well, Dr. Berkowitz, it was his aim to build a museum for TV and movie cars and motorcycles. Burt Ward has signed this one, and he acquired a lot of originals that were used in the movie and TV industry. If he couldn't get the original, he would commission a very faithful replica, and that's what's been done here. The Bat Cycle is this Yamaha Enduro, 125 cc's, and this go-kart actually can extend and take off separate from the cycle.
Yeah, and we have the real Batmobile selling on Super Saturday. And Mike, I'll rock the Robin tights if you want to rock the Batman tights. I'm in.
Well, should be fun.
You know, not only signed by Burt Ward, but we also saw in the gas tank, they also have a Adam West signature. So the two key players from the original Batman series signed this thing. Of course, this was not used in the very beginning of the show. This came in, I think, a number of episodes in. I think it was one of the Penguin episodes when they used this thing.
Well, there was a Batcopter, a Bat Cycle, a Batgirl Cycle. We're going to see a bunch of them. Either the original or very faithful recreation for the museum that Dr. Berkowitz had hoped to build, but sadly he passed away. And the family has decided to sell off these vehicles. They also have sets that were used on TV shows and movies and costumes, which are not here at Barrett-Jackson, but contact information will be provided to the winning bidders of these vehicles should they wish to acquire some of those.
$55,000 for a 1966 Yamaha Enduro, but more importantly, a Bat Cycle recreation with the autographs of Burt Ward and Adam West. All right, you say you're more of a Batgirl kind of person? Well, we got a deal for you. How about this 67 Yamaha that's done up as a Batgirl Cycle recreation?
Well, this is also an Enduro DT 125, but you know what this reminds me of was in the 50s when all the boys had Lionel trains, and Lionel came up with a girls' train. It was the same train cars and engine, but in pastel colors. Didn't sell very well, very valuable now. So the Batgirl wanted her own cycle. Here it is.
Well, this one also has lots of lace in the front, sort of flowing like a dress. You know, Batgirl in the modern age is, just as dark and as Batman himself, wearing the same black. But in the TV show, well, they didn't mind making her a little more feminine. I like it personally. The tassels and all that stuff.
So the Batgirl was the daughter of Commissioner Gordon. She was added to the cast, and boy, everything about this is so politically incorrect today, right?
I suppose you're right. Yeah, how Batman has evolved over the decades from, goofy, campy TV show to Tim Burton's still sort of campy fun to the serious Dark Knight with the the voice. And, now it's sort of a crime thriller with the latest version of it. So, yeah, Batman has evolved quite a bit.
Commissioner Gordon's daughter was Barbara, and the alter ego was Batgirl. And I think it was like Yvonne Craig or somebody who was the actress who played Batgirl. But once again, like you say, nothing politically correct about it. But here it's sold at Barrett-Jackson, $27,000. Up on the block right behind it, we're staying in the Batman world. From two Bat Cycles to a Bat Boat.
Oh, push the button for ludicrous speed, will you? Okay, the Polaris that's hauling it is not included. Okay, you don't get the Polaris, but you get the Bat Boat. And what another just great piece of whimsy this is. This started out as a Glastron V174 and was used in the 1966 film Batman the Movie following season 1 of the TV show. And then it continued in years 2 and 3. This has a Mercruiser L6 stern drive as the actual power source, but it was designed to be, a fusion type machine, and the stern drive and engine are hidden from view.
Yeah, they kind of did the top half of a jet-powered boat. They had the nuclear sort of style, wild noises as that went through like it was some crazy powered jet boat with that massive fin. Boy, this thing is fantastic. It kind of reminds me of Mike found the horn. It kind of reminds me of the Batmobile with the, the dual windshield there.
Everything is metal flake, as it was in the 1960s. Even the vinyl upholstery is a blue metal flake.
I'll tell you what, getting a lot of attention. We just hit $100,000. And it's still going. The Bat Boat here at Barrett-Jackson just hit 6 figures and sold for $105,000. Now, this is just a recreation, but it's done so well, and it got a lot of attention here at Barrett-Jackson. In fact, today, if you want to break into the top 5, you're going to have to spend at least $97,000 because 4 of the cars are 6-figure cars. And now we've got a Joker Mobile recreation from the Batman series.
Well, nothing was too over the top for the Batman series. This was supposed to be, this hot rod belonged to the Joker. There's a big block here under hood, twin scoops feeding the twin carburetors. Excuse me. That's the Klaxon style horn. And look at the upholstery. Shagadelic. Oh, jeez.
Yeah, I'm also seeing Rolls-Royce grill on the front with a Spirit of Ecstasy. Kind of hard to see behind the Joker's head. But yeah, that's that dual carb intake on a classic car, but it's been modified quite a bit. It looks like a single intake there. And yeah, it even has a parachute. This thing set up as sort of a dragster mounted to the back. What a goofy thing. 2 surfboards for the headrest in the rear.
Who was the actor, Rick? Was it Cesar Romero? I believe so. This is just a great piece of whimsy. I don't know where you drive it. I don't know if you drive it, but wouldn't this be a lot of fun?
Well, the interesting story about this is that with the original one that was actually built for the TV show was used in an Elvis Presley movie. They took it, repurposed it, turned it into the Joker Mobile. It had another life.
Yeah, George Barris, in particular, had a great way of taking things and repurposing them into very special cars.
Sold for $33,000. And that puts a bow on our first 2 hours of live coverage here on FYI. But to tell you the truth, we are just getting cranked up on this Wednesday in Scottsdale. We still have 4 more hours to go. Welcome to Barrett-Jackson, the world's greatest collector car auction here in Scottsdale in January. A total of more than 2,000 cars that are crossing the block, but not each one can come up the normal way. Some of them, well, they have to come in the back door because they're just so darn big, and that is exactly what we have right here. A Lincoln Continental that's been redone as the Animal House recreation Deathmobile.
So in the movie, D-Day lit up his cutting torch and he took Flounder's older brother's Lincoln Continental and turned it into this to ruin the Faber College homecoming parade. This is the only door that opens. It is musty and dusty in there, and as they cut this thing up to build it, a lot of the detritus is still just kind of lying around. I was in this earlier. I don't know why. I just kind of, you had to do it. To love John Belushi. But yeah, the real Deathmobile, the Star Car, Peter Reed had it. They brought it to Laguna Seca for the vintage races, but they wouldn't let it run around the track. They figured it would high side over the corkscrew, and he just sold it 2 weeks ago. Peter says it's going to a museum in Alabama, but this is a very faithful replica of the one that was not crashed during the climactic parade scene.
$27,000. And we should point out this is one of the vehicles in the Stuart Berkowitz collection, a man who has gathering all kinds of great movie and TV memorabilia. He's had tons of vehicles, many of which are crossing the block this week. We saw a lot cross yesterday, even more today, like this one, a 1976 Ford Gran Torino. Yep, you guessed it, a Starsky and Hutch recreation.
All right, Tyler, you want to do the slide across the hood?
I don't dare. I might get fired. But yeah, that would be very, very fun to do. Most certainly. You know, the Dukes of Hazzard, and they're famous for sliding across the hood, and in Starsky and Hutch. And now this one, they did put it down as a recreation, but there's a little bit of conjecture on it because it is from, I believe, Fox Studios. It's thought to be the #3 as far as the striped tomato used in the series, but just to be safe, I think they're calling it a recreation. But they did actually make these into production, so they did actually sell, I think, 1,000 examples with this red and white stripe. But you can see they've got the alarm, whatever on top, and then of course the radio, police radio inside, the siren on top. Sorry about that.
And the sun visor here on the passenger side has been signed by Paul Michael Glaser and David Soul, the actors who portrayed Detective Starkey and Detective Hutchinson. There are those autographs. Boy, I think for a while, everybody who had a red two-door Torino painted it up like one of these tomatoes.
Well, that's interesting. They were just about to hammer it closed, and indeed they did. At the very last second, the phone bidder was trying to put in one last bid. But this gentleman right here is the winner. He gets the highest bid because they didn't hear that last bid coming in. And the auctioneer is the captain of the ship. If he decides that it's time to move on, that's when they move on. All right, from Starsky and Hutch to Tommy Boy, a 1967 Plymouth Belvedere, a recreation of the car used in the movie from 1995, Tommy Boy.
Yeah, Chris Farley, gosh, what a wonderful talent. This is a recreation of the car from the movie, one that was very much like it. And a little bit of movie trivia, if you will. Did you know comedian Chris Farley is the first cousin of Ford CEO Jim Farley? Take a good look and you'll see the resemblance.
Well, we know we got the name, but I think I need the genealogy work to prove it. Once again, another car from the Stuart Berkowitz collection. And boy, we saw so much fun stuff. And many of the vehicles in our top 10 are from that collection. I mean, yesterday we saw that Beverly Hillbillies custom done by George Barris, the Jethro hot rod that sold for $150,000.
Well, and this one is a tribute. The one in the film was thoroughly trashed, if I remember correctly. But David Spade, also in the film with Farley, and he's a big Mopar fan, had it in many of his films, including most recently we saw the Joe Dirt Daytona sell in Palm Beach. So he's a big fan of Barrett Jackson, has been to numerous auctions, and definitely a big Mopar fan. So it's easy to see why these found their way into the films, a Belvedere like this.
Yeah, David Spade actually grew up here in the Valley going to Barrett Jackson, so he's a big car guy, and the fact that he gets to both buy and sell here is a great thing. $23,000 for that Tommy Boy recreation of a 1967 Plymouth Belvedere to that gentleman right there. Let's check in with April Rose.
Hey, Rick, I'm under one of the many tents here at Barrett Jackson with a recreation of one of the greatest movie cars of all time. It's Ecto-1, a 59 Cadillac. Now, a lot of these are made into recreations, but this is the correct one with the fins that just look so cool. You got the radar up front, all the sirens, and that red tube up there. Fully functional. We have it on right now. It's actually a ghost sniffer, so don't worry. You are safe right now. I got you. And inside, very cool. Look at those signatures from the movie. Dan Aykroyd himself signed this, who wrote the movie. Now, it made $282 million when it came out. This is just so wild. There's been many recreations of the movie, many recreations of Ecto-1, but this one has my heart. And look over here as well. Who you gonna call? Ernie Winston signed it on the dash right there. I bet you've never seen one like this here at Barrett Jackson.
All right, we've talked about it. It's finally arrived at the Ecto-1, a 1959 Cadillac Miller and Meteor Ghostbusters Ectomobile recreation.
Well, who are you going to call right here? The Ghostbusters Ecto-1. This is a tribute from the Berkowitz collection, and it's very hard to find a 59 ambulance or hearse as a basis for one of these for the replica. But, of course, in the film, they build this to go hunting ghosts, and this one is a very screen-accurate tribute with everything on top as far as the ghost sniffer, the radar, you have the siren, you have the place to store the ghosts after you capture them, and we're already into the six figures, over $100,000. Yeah, take a look inside too. Sort of the ambulance or hearse setup and lots of props inside.
Dr. Berkowitz in New Jersey collected movie and TV cars as this becomes the top seller of the day. He wanted to build a museum for them, but sadly passed away before his dream was realized. And so many of these great movie and TV cars and replicas, if he couldn't get the original, are here at Barrett-Jackson. And listen to the crowd as we pass $200,000 bid.
It's important to remember, this is not the original. This is a replica, highly done. Very nice, and once again, as you point out, on a 1959 Cadillac, we're at $255,000, and I think we're still going.
Well, you can see they have the mounting areas for the proton packs. I mean, this is a really screen-accurate replica of just one of those iconic movies that just, you know, passes generation after generation of kids and adults alike loving it. It's easy to see why the current bid is something that somebody would bring home and want to hunt ghosts themselves. What an amazing build. Hey, yeah, $270,000. Wow.
So we have 3 phone bidders involved. We have an internet bidder, and we've got a bidder on the floor. And it just sold
no ghosts.
over the internet. Maybe it was a ghost on the internet for $270,000 here at Barrett-Jackson. This Ecto-1 replica has found a new home. Way to go, Ghostbusters. All right, now the question is, what is your favorite movie for a replica? If you like the Ectomobile, great, but this one is really popular. A 1983 DeLorean. It's a Back to the Future recreation.
Well, here's another one where the car is one of the stars of the film. They took a DeLorean, made it into a time machine. Doc Brown modified it to where if you hit 88 miles an hour, you'd see some mysterious, well, you know what. Thanks to that flex capacitor in the back, you can see, you can set the date as well. Went back to 1955 to some calamity when Doc Brown discovered or invented time travel, and Marty had to fix things up after he messed up his parents. But this one is styled after the later film, so you don't need plutonium to go back in time. Mike's got the future technology right there.
Yeah, this is the Mr. Fusion, and you load it here, and Mr. Fusion was a movie. It was a parody in the movie on Mr. Coffee, which was a home coffee brewer. Who was it, Joe DiMaggio? Who was it? Some famous athlete was pumping Mr. Coffee, and it's like, okay, it was Joe DiMaggio, so let's do Mr. Fusion.
So this car is missing one thing that the movie car had to have.
What's that?
A speedometer that goes up to 95 miles an hour. Back then, they could only go to 85, so technically this could never make 88.
How many gigawatts did you need?
1.21 gigawatts.
Well, okay then.
One other key difference I'm noticing also, it's an automatic transmission. In the movie, it was a manual transmission. Really, these DeLoreans from the factory would struggle to do 88 miles an hour, but of course they wet the roads and sped things up to make it look like they could go faster. But yeah, very screen accurate stuff here, huh, Mike?
Yeah, look at all this junk, all of these batteries and heat sinks and electronic stuff. But I mean, it's all beautifully cabled and tie wrapped and everything plugs together. I would call this a very believable replica.
Believable to the tune of $120,000. You don't care what's underneath engine-wise. All you care about is all that great movie stuff on the outside.
Arguably the biggest moment in Barrett-Jackson's televised history was when the original Batmobile sold here for more than $4 million with George Barris, its builder, riding shotgun. Well, Barris took that original steel-bodied car, made molds, and built 2 more like this with fiberglass bodies. Later, there were a lot of copies made, but this car is certified by Barris to have been one of the 3 actually used in the production of the TV show. What's going to happen when it rocks the block?
Documented by Barris Custom Industries Certificate of Authenticity. This vehicle is the number 3 Batmobile used in the Batman TV series and Batman the movie for drive-by and stand-in filming, as well as for promotional events and other special appearances. The chassis was modified from a 1966 Ford Galaxy fitted to the body of number 3 Batmobile at Barris Custom Industries. The bodies of Batmobile number 2 and Batmobile number 3 were both laid in fiberglass molds made from the original steel Batmobile number 1 in 1966. This Batmobile is coming to you from the Dr. Stuart Berkowitz collection, selling at no reserve. When we sold Batmobile number 1, it was absolute pandemonium in the tent. Let's see how this one sells.
Really looking forward to watching this cross the block. I can't emphasize enough, not another clone. This is one built by George Barris back in the day, designed to be a part of the original show. They used it for all kinds of things, and it's going to go across the auction block later this week. All right, up on the block now, the Batmobile. This is Batmobile number 3, built by George Barris for the TV show and the movie.
So there are differences between this and the original that sold here for $4.2 million. That was a steel-bodied car built on the Lincoln Futura show car, which Ford Motor Company sold to Barris for $1. There was such a demand for appearances by the Batmobile, but they couldn't let it out of Los Angeles because they were filming. So Barris took the original and he made fiberglass molds and built 2 cars to use in the series and for appearances all around the country. This is one of them, confirmed by Barris to be one of the 3 cars actually used in the production of the television series. Now, the original had all of the signage in Dymo label tape. This is a little more professionally done. The original jet exhaust was really a reinterpreted 5-gallon paint can. This is a little different. So, yes, there are differences, but it's a real deal used in the Adam West, Burt Ward Batman TV series.
And this is one of the cars coming out of the Stuart Berkowitz collection. Dr. Stuart Berkowitz was a big fan of movies and TVs, and he amassed quite a collection. At one point, he wanted to put together a museum, but unfortunately passed away before he could. We sold a number of those vehicles, but this may be the star of that whole collection because this, once again, a real Batmobile built by George Barris.
Tyler, were you just calling Commissioner Gordon on the bat phone? Is that what just happened?
Yeah, and he said to the Batmobile, which, yeah, here it is.
That was a metal car. They took the molds off that car from the Futura Batmobile, made number 2 and number 3. This is not a replica. This is one George built in the TV series and the movie, a piece of pulp culture right here.
$450.
When the original came around the corner and up on the stage here at Barrett-Jackson, the Batman theme blared on the PA system, and I remember saying on the air, on Speed Channel, Kings, Presidents, Batmobile. Nothing else before or since has received the kind of reception and attention as George Barris and the original.
Well, you know, even as a kid watching that show in reruns, I'm sure Tyler felt the same way. As someone that was always into cars, this just held a spot on my Mount Rushmore. It was so special, so unique, and it's still today. The lines on this car are so cool. George Barris was just so talented at bringing something like this to life. I just don't know how Tyler has never owned one of these of all the cool cars he's owned.
Well, one of my greatest Barrett-Jackson memories was just being in the room for that as a spectator when the original Batmobile sold. What an amazing moment. And here's the same magic here with the screen-used Batmobile. Not the original, but all of that look and all of the pedigree. Adam West sitting in the driver's seat. Robin riding alongside. That siren, the design, of course, of the crazy styling of the Batmobile that Barris thought up. Just incredible.
And it just sold for $450,000. Batmobile number 3, actually built by George Barris. Built on that 1960 Galaxy chassis, and much more attention to detail than the original Batmobile that sold.
And it sold for about 10% what the original sold for years ago here at Barrett-Jackson.
This is a little something different we're going to see tomorrow, an actual TV truck from the Beverly Hillbillies, which is so cool. It's actually used, it's George Barris build. Obviously, he's built so many famous movie cars and TV cars. What do you think?
I mean, I think it's really special. April, I know you just moved to Kansas.
Right?
Imagine you're outside one day just shooting at some food, and then up from the ground came a bubbling crude. What would you do?
Well,
You'd move to Beverly Hills.
Obviously, I would move to Beverly Hills.
You'd pack your whole family up, all your belongings, right, in your 1921 Oldsmobile,
Right.
and off you would go.
Do you know everyone that's in here?
Oh, yeah, you got Jed there with the hat on. That's his son Jethro
Right.
behind him, his daughter Ellie Mae, and then Granny's at the back. I don't know the dog's name, but I feel like we should.
Right, always know the big dog's name. That's a good sign. You got some deer antlers, your shotgun, shovels and pans. I had a little question about this, though. Was this actually in the TV show where they would take roadkill and eat like fast food along the road and cook it?
Have you not met any hillbillies yet in Kansas? Because for some people, we just call it convenience.
I don't know. I met you, right?
Exactly. That's what I mean.
I mean, this is a really cool ride, actually used in the TV show. There's been a lot of recreations we've had here, but this one, real deal. So I don't know what the value is going to be. We'll see tomorrow.
Somebody's going to love it. I hope we just get to sing as much of this song as possible tomorrow.
Do you remember how it went?
Oh.
Rick, back to you.
Yeah, just before we get ugly again. By the way, the dog's name was Duke. He was a bloodhound. How about a 1921 Oldsmobile Model 46 that was actually used on the TV show for the Beverly Hillbillies, built and designed by George Barris to be a part of that TV show. Craig Jackson is talking about the fact that the Berkowitz collection is crossing the block and how we have a few more cars left to see. And this is one of them, the Beverly Hillbillies truck.
Paul Henning was the producer that created the Beverly Hillbillies and Petticoat Junction, a number of other shows. He wrote the theme song sung by Flatt and Scruggs, famous country duo. And here it is with replica Jed Clampett, Ellie Mae, nephew Jethro on board.
Yeah, after shooting at the ground and oil bubbled up, they were multi-millionaires overnight, loaded up in this car and went to Beverly Hills, moved into a mansion with a cement pond, and hilarity ensued for the TV show. So the opening scene of every episode, you saw this car and the whole family rolling down the road, and yeah, this is it, the real deal. Mannequins to replicate, you know, Granny in the back seat. You can see even they have a roadkill bucket to pick up some food on the side of the road. Hillbilly fast food, I think is what you called it, Rut?
Just a little something extra to eat. I mean, I think it's great. To me, I think what really makes these over the top is when they have the mannequins in there and the dog, Duke, that Rick reminded me last night. I really think this is just such a fun piece. Feels like it's got to be in a museum somewhere that people can enjoy, right?
This has a small block Chevy engine in it. Not that anybody cares. It's a small block V8. It's like a 283 two-barrel, just enough to get it down the road. Barrett-Jackson driver not included.
So interestingly, we actually have two Beverly Hillbillies trucks here this week, one of which is a recreation. I'm assuming he bought that first, and then he was able to get his hands on the real thing. This one that was the actual TV show used vehicle.
Note the signature on the dash. That is not George Barris. That is Sam Barris, George's brother, who did a lot of the heavy work there at Barris Industries.
And earlier this week, we saw a Ghostbusters Ecto-1 recreation that came out of the Stuart Berkowitz collection that brought big money. It's been a fun collection of cars to watch cross the block all week long.
Well, it says it on the back here in the wood bed, Beverly Hills or bust.
Max Baer Jr., who played Jethro, is the sole surviving member of the Beverly Hills cast.
$110,000 for the original Joe used Oldsmobile Beverly Hillbillies truck. Off it goes.
Here's lot 1415, 1966 Pontiac GTO, the Monkey Mobile recreation. Here's a vehicle acquired by Dr. Stuart Berkowitz in 2013. Skillfully built, highly authentic recreation of the Monkey Mobile. The vehicle began as a true Baltimore-built 1966 Pontiac GTO hardtop. It is powered by that V8 engine. Here's lot 1415.
All right, had to get down 40 pay and have it honored on him. Had to get down 40 pay. You want it? All right, had to get down 40 pay and have it honored on him. Had to get out to get this thing here too. And 200,000 on it. 200. All right, had to get down 70 to give 100. All right, had to get down 70 to give 50, 75, and 75, 5, and 75,000 out of it to get down 75, 5, 50, 60, and 60 now 70, and 70,000 out of it to get down 70 grand on him here to get down 70,000 out and 70,000 and 70,000 out of it to get down 70,000 out on him here to get down to give it to get down what you want to pay and 70,000 out of it to get down 70,000 and 70,000 out and 70,000 out of it to get down 60,000 70,000 all through and 70,000 Tanner, go ahead.
Berkowitz in 2013 skillfully built the vehicle. Best of all, the captivating Monkey Mobile bears the autographs of 3 of the 4 band members as well. Here's an incredible example of that Pontiac GTO Monkey Mobile.
5. I'd had to get out, take 65 if he wants to do it. And now 70 and 70,000 and 70,000 on it and 70,000 on it now 70,000 on it and 75 and 75 5 and 75,000 on it and 75 75 and 75,000 on it out of it to get down 75 and 75,000 on it out of it to get down 75 5 and 75,000 and 75,000 on it out of it to get down. He's a seller too and 75,000 and 75,000 and 75,000 on it out of it to get down 5 and 75,000 on it out of it to get all through. All done. And 75 and 75,000 on it out of it to get down 5 to get down 80 and 80,000 and 80,000 on it and 80,000 on it out of it to get down 80,000 on it and 80,000 on it out of it to get down 80,000. Craig, say a little bit more about that thing.
Well, we sold the original one here for what, $350,000. What it took to build this is amazing. I think this is one of those 1960s icons right here.
80, I'd had to get down 90, I'd had to get down 80, 90, and 90,000 on it, and 80 now 90, and 90,000 on it, out of it to get down 80,000 on it, 90,000 on it, and 80,000 on it, now 90,000 on it, on him, to get down 80, 90 fire, and 90,000 on it, everybody through, everybody done, and 90,000 on it, out of it to get down 90 grand on it, to get down 90,000 on it, and 90,000 on the internet, and 90,000 on it, out of it to get down 90,000 on it, sold $80,000.
All right, now they're selling one more item that I believe was out of the Stuart Berkowitz collection. This is the Batcopter. Now you can see it outside. It's we can't bring it into the building, but this is what it looks like.
Yeah, a Bell helicopter modified to look just like the one used in the Batman film. And this one did get a little damage, I believe, in transport with that glass cone that was sort of iconic of this era of helicopter with the exposed sort of space frame for the tail. But yeah, it's all that Batman bling added to it.
Obviously, it wasn't going to fly into the auction arena here. Well, we had the Bat Cycle, we had the Batgirl cycle, we had the Batmobile. We've had a whole lot of Bat vehicles, and here it comes in the outdoor on a trailer.
Well, we also had the Bat Boat. Don't forget that. I mean, we were loaded with Batman stuff. You know, in the beginning, they didn't actually have a Batcopter. That was not part of the collection that used on the show, just the Batmobile. But now this one's been sold here for $30,000. This 1967 Bell 47, the Batcopter recreation.